What's up everybody, Andy here and welcome back to Kit Guru. So if you're a content creator or a live streamer that requires footage of games or desktop apps, for example, you're going to need one crucial thing: a way of capturing that footage. Now, the best way of doing this is via a dedicated piece of hardware called a capture card. Now, Elgato, the company, are one of the leading companies in this field, and they've just released a brand new bit of kit. Today, we're checking out the Elgato 4K60 Plus external capture card, which in the UK currently is retailing for $389.99, so it's a bit more expensive, this one. Now, there's a lot of information to cover here, so I will be focusing on what I believe to be the best features, so stick around until the end to hear my conclusion. So in case this is all new to you, let's ask the question: what is a capture card? Well, a capture card takes the signal from a source, like a console, camera, or a PC, and lets you record that footage, which could later be edited and uploaded to YouTube, for example, as well as feed that footage live into a broadcasting software to then be streamed live in real time to a service such as Twitch. Elgato have a number of capture cards already available, but their external ones to date cannot record 4K footage. As the name suggests, this capture card can record up to 4K at 60 frames per second externally, and that is a pretty big deal because previously you would have needed a dedicated internal capture card that installs directly into a PCIe slot inside a computer, for example the 4K60 Pro. Now, I have reviewed the 4K60 Pro Mark II last year, and you can find that review here on YouTube under Kit Guru's channel. Now, quick spoiler alert, you don't need a PC to be able to record with the new 4K60 Plus. Now, being able to externally record up to 4K60 footage really opens up the doors for people with lower end systems, those that don't have spare PCIe lanes, laptop users, and let's not forget the traveling content creators and streamers out there. There's a lot more up its sleeve than just being an external unit though, and we're going to cover those a little bit later, so stick around. Now, the box has Elgato's classic blue design and it's well presented. Inside we have the 4K60 Plus, a multi-region power supply, 2 USB 3.0 cables and 1 HDMI 2.0 cable, and a quick start guide. Now, personally, I hate these multi-region power adapters. I always find they feel cheap and they run the risk of breaking. However, I've changed my opinion, as having this included means that you can actually purchase the 4K60 Plus from any country, anywhere you'd like, and you're guaranteed to be able to plug it in and play straight from the box. Now, as with my previous Elgato capture card reviews, I've always been disappointed with the inclusion of only one very short HDMI cable, since you're always going to need two to be able to capture footage from a console. So just remember that if you are planning on utilizing the 4K features, you will need a second HDMI cable that is HDMI 2.0 to be able to send over a 4K signal at 60 FPS with HDR. Design and aesthetics wise, they've really made some changes in comparison to the previous external devices. The older 1080p models like the HD60 and 60S Plus were a funny pebble shape with no buttons on it, just an input and output from the front and back. That design always bugged me, as you could never really get it to look good on your setup because you had stuff hanging out the front and the back. Now, they've completely redesigned the 4K60 Plus housing this time, and luckily for the better. This design looks super sleek, stylish, and way more practical. Instead of having a pebble, we have a larger rectangle design made from metal instead of plastic, with an awesome etched pattern on the top surrounding Elgato's logo. On the front, we have a line in for recording a microphone input into your footage, an LED capacitive recording button in the middle, and an SD card slot on the right hand side. On the back, we have a USB-C port to attach the 4K60S Plus to a computer via the included USB-C to USB 3.0 cable, and another USB-C port to power the unit via the included cable and power adapter. Now there's also 2 HDMI ports for input and output, and on the base we have plenty of vents to let any heat passively sort of pass through there, as well as rubber feet that not only stop slipping on the surface, but they also raise the unit up to let better airflow as well. The benefits of this design, and why I massively prefer it over other models, is that all the connections are on the back, and this means you can have all your messy cables hanging out of the back and routed along your desk or TV stand without having to move the unit. You can access the SD card slot, as well as recording features and mic in and all that good stuff. A very simple change, but one that makes ease of use so much better, and this alone is a big win for me. Now I will be showing you how to set up and use the 4K60S Plus a little bit later, but right now I'd like to touch on some of the features, functions, and also some of the drawbacks that it does have to offer. I'll start with all the benefits, and after I'll address the faults. We have true pass-through, and this means that there is zero lag for the player, so there is no delay in the video signal being sent from, say, your console through the 4K60S Plus and then into the TV. And this is of course great for the gamer, as you'll be sure not to miss a beat due to any sort of like lag or delay there. Next, we have HDR10 support for both pass-through and recording. So high dynamic range is a newer display system that reproduces more colors than the previous standard dynamic range. So SDR is represented by 8 bits with a maximum of 256 shades of each color, whereas HDR allows for 10-bit color depth, which has a shade count of 1024. Now this is a huge boost in numbers, and it really does make colors pop, and it also gives a much crisper image. Now remember I said you didn't need a PC to record with this? Well, that's because the 4K60S Plus has a built-in HEVC chip, which stands for high efficiency video coding, and this encoder can essentially produce the same quality that H.264 does, but with almost twice the compression rate, which means much smaller file sizes. Due to this unit having a dedicated HEVC chip, it does not require a PC's CPU to decode and compress the incoming video signal, so it is possible to record directly onto an SD card or directly to your PC's drive without straining that PC's CPU. Now this is excellent for people with older systems or those that don't want the hassle of hooking up a PC at all. It's also excellent for people that screen record or run 2 separate screen recording instances at the same time, for people that create tutorials and other stuff like that. You can simply record right onto an SD card without the hassle of multiple programs being open, so another big bonus there. Let's touch on the SD cards quickly, as you can't just use any old card you have laying around. The 4K60S Plus requires a minimum UHS Class 3 or V30 SD card, and these cards are usually around 90 megabytes per second read and write speeds, and that's important as the default bit rate on the 4K60S Plus for recording is 80,000, and the card needs to be able to handle that data transfer. Don't forget to use a large capacity card too. Now, another thing to note is the SD card format. So you can either format using exFAT or FAT32, but using FAT32 will cause your footage to be segmented into 4 GB clips, and we don't want that, do we? So you're much better off using exFAT format, as this will not chop up your recordings. Once you've inserted your card and the flashing red dot on the button glows solid, you're now ready to record. But this also creates a text file on your SD card. If you open up that file on a PC, you can edit parameters. So first of all, I highly recommend recording in MKV and not MP4, because MP4 is prone to corruption, whereas MKV is way more reliable and less likely to corrupt if recordings fail or if the SD card is removed whilst recording. So setting the format MKV from 0 to 1 makes that happen. Leave video encoder at 0 and this automatically records using HEVC or AVC for SDR depending on the input signal. Max K bitrate is automatically at 80,000 for 4K, and for most this is going to be absolutely fine. You could push it to 100,000 or more for better quality, but you will get bigger file sizes, and you have to keep in mind that you will need an expensive V60 or V90 SD card to handle the data transfer rate. Now the bitrate should not exceed your SD card's max write speed. Audio input, 0 records HDMI only, setting to 1 records line in only, and setting the value to 3 records both HDMI and line in audio combined into one file. Audio volume is your line in volume, and you will have to make test recordings to check your volume and adjust them between 0 and 255. Elgato recommend leaving it 176. Before I go any further, I want to say that the image quality is exceptional even at the default settings whilst recording to the SD card. This is an absolute breeze and dream to use. All gameplay footage used in this video has been captured at 4K using a PS4 Pro on a 4K HDR10 TV. Okay, so the 4K60S Plus sounds like a dream, right? It can basically do everything, go anywhere, and give you total freedom to record or stream whatever you like, wherever you like, whenever you like, right? Well, not exactly. Despite having an onboard HEVC encoder, it sounds great. Better for those with older systems, right? Because it puts less strain on your CPU, but you will still need a fairly up-to-date PC to use it via USB mode. It requires a minimum of a 6th generation i5 or Ryzen 7 or better, and a minimum of a GTX 10 series card or better. And of course, you'll need a USB 3.0 port. Not only that, but HEVC files are notoriously difficult to edit, and this isn't an issue if you're going to upload your footage raw, like straight from the card to, say, YouTube, but if you plan on editing them, then you'll need a much better system than the minimum specs required, and most likely some troubleshooting with your preferred editing software. As good as true pass-through is for the gamer, the 4K60S Plus actually causes a latency of around 250 milliseconds when feeding that signal into a PC for live streaming. Now this is because the video feed is being decoded and compressed via the 4K60S Plus itself, and then it needs to be reanalyzed by the streaming PC before it then sends that feed to the streaming service. And this means you will need to offset your microphone and your webcam input and delay them in your broadcasting software by 250 milliseconds. Otherwise, your live reaction will be seen by your viewers before, they see what you're actually reacting to. Finally, which is in my opinion one of the biggest issues, is the supported resolutions. For the full list of supported resolutions and specifications of the 4K60S Plus, head over to kitguru.net. Now we know the 4K60S Plus supports 4K 60 HDR and even 1080p, absolutely fine. But to record these to your SD card, you will need a monitor or TV that meets these same requirements to be able to record them. So for example, if you want to record 4K at 60 FPS with HDR 10-bit color, you will need a 4K monitor or TV with HDR10 support. The 4K60S Plus detects the screen you're using as its source and will only capture what the screen is capable of displaying. I also want to point out that gameplay footage shown in this video may look washed out and not as punchy in color as it is not displayed in HDR. Instead, what you're seeing is an SDR color map, as I would need to actually film and edit this entire video with an HDR camera, which I've got, but I can only record in HDR with a separate external recorder, which I do not have. So not only that, but to watch an HDR video on YouTube, you would need an HDR monitor for it to display. Now YouTube will automatically display SDR colors if you attempt to view HDR videos on a non-HDR monitor. Yet this leads us on to another issue. So PC gamers. The majority of PC gamers know that 1440p high refresh rate gaming is the sweet spot but the 4K60S Plus has no support whatsoever for 1440p. There's not even 1440p pass-through, so no capture at all either. It just simply won't work. Even if you're a 1080p high refresh rate user, the maximum 1080p FPS supported is 60. Your only option to achieve 1440p high refresh rate pass-through, input and capture is to check out the other capture card by Elgato, the 4K60 Pro Mark II, which is an internal capture card that I mentioned earlier, but of course this requires a dedicated PC slot. Finally, let me show you how to set up the 4K60S Plus and go over the software. So plug your power cable into the unit and then take your console's HDMI out and insert that into the HDMI in on the unit. Then take the HDMI 2.0 lead and plug that into the output port and then into your TV. For SD card recording, that's it, you're done. Just wait for the flashing red dot to glow solid and you're ready to record. So tap that button to start recording and tap it to stop recording. I absolutely love this feature. The ease of use is just out of this world, and by far the SD card recording is my favorite feature of this device because you can use it anywhere and it saves me having to trail cables everywhere to my streaming PC. Now, another small gripe here is that I wish there was an actual button on the front rather than the capacitive panel, because you don't really know if you've got it working or not. To send the feed to your PC, take the USB-C to USB-A cable and plug that into your USB 3 port on your PC. Download and install 4K capture utility from Elgato's website, check for updates, and update the 4K60S Plus firmware if needed. In the top right, click Settings and then Device, and you can select the card there. The Recordings tab lets you choose where to save files and more. Press the red record button at the bottom to record and again to stop. And the Library tab obviously shows you your saved recordings, and you can do a lot of organization there. Personally, I use OBS to stream and record, so I'll show you that too, but be sure to update any firmware via the 4K capture utility first. Open OBS, head to the Sources tab, right click or press on the plus button and add new video capture device. Select the 4K60S Plus from the drop down and it's as easy as that. Now there's another issue here which I hope they do fix via a firmware update, which is whilst testing the 4K60S Plus, if I recorded my PS4 Pro or anything else actually via the USB to my PC and then disconnected my PC and tried to, record via the SD card, nothing would display. And I tested this over and over and over and over again. I had to manually unplug the power and then replug in the power for the capture card for it to actually display the signal again, which was kind of frustrating during my tests. Now we're finally here. What do I personally think of the 4K60S Plus? Well, as many pros as there are here, there are actually equally or possibly more cons. And if you're considering the 4K60S Plus, then you really need to get your priorities straight with what you are wanting to achieve from this card, because it's not really an investment to take lightly, because it's pretty expensive at nearly £400. Now overall, I think it offers some incredible features, functions and performance, all in one relatively small external package that's very easy to use, and it also looks the part in any setup without needing a PC to record. If you travel often, use a laptop only, or even just a console gamer, then this is definitely the card for you. For PC players, especially those that use 1440p resolutions, high refresh rate users and dual system users, then you're better off considering the internal 4K60 Pro Mark II instead, which by the way is £160 cheaper than the 4K60S Plus. What do you guys think of this new capture card by Elgato? Let us know down in the comments. If you've liked this video, hit that thumbs up, make sure to smash the subscribe and ring the notification bell, and you can check out our merch down below, and don't forget to check out kitguru.net daily. Now I've been Andy, this is Kit Guru, I'll see you in the next one, so thank you so much for watching.